freeze!
The November evening had settled over San Diego with a crisp coolness, the kind that sharpened every sound and carried the scent of salt from the nearby bay. Inside Shamu Stadium, floodlights burned bright against the darkening sky, casting long gleams across the massive pool. The place was alive with chatter and excitement, a crowd of hundreds gathering for the final show of the day. Parents balanced popcorn tubs and soda cups. Children leaned forward with wide eyes, their voices rising in laughter and anticipation. The bleachers hummed with the kind of energy that only comes when families believe they are about to witness magic. The pool itself reflected the blaze of overhead lights and fractured ripples. Every shimmer on the surface promised spectacle. Beneath it, the water looked almost serene, hiding the dark mass that would soon explode upward. Trainers moved along the platform with practiced calm, their wetsuits gleaming under the floodlights, signaling that the carefully rehearsed performance was minutes from beginning. Overhead speakers carried the first strains of music orchestral notes, bouncing off steel railings and echoing against the concrete walls. At center stage stood Ken Peters, a veteran trainer with more than a decade of experience in the water. His posture was steady, his movements measured every step, honed by years of muscle memory. He glanced across the pool eyes, scanning for the silhouette he knew as well as a colleague's face. For him, tonight was routine, another show in a long line of shows that stitched together his career. But deep down, he never forgot the truth. The partner he awaited was 6 tons of raw power, a 30-year-old female orca named Kasatka. Suddenly, a swell disturbed the surface. A dorsal fin cut the water like a blade, and then the massive whale broke through in a surge of spray, her body arcing before crashing back down in a curtain of white foam. The crowd gasped, then erupted in cheers. Children shouted her name as if summoning a legend. Cameras flashed, recording every second. To them, it was spectacle. To Ken, it was the beginning of another delicate dance between man and predator. And as the opening music swelled, he crouched low, extending his arm, the signal that would set the night in motion. Kasatka's shadow slipped beneath the surface, circling in broad arcs that seemed almost leisurely. Ken held his posture on the platform, extending his arm again, inviting her forward for the next sequence. The music surged in tempo, matching the rhythm of her approach. For a heartbeat, everything looked flawless, polished exactly as the audience expected. Then the water ahead of him rippled with sudden force. In an instant, the orca erupted upward, her rostrum breaking the surface with startling speed. Before Ken could adjust his stance, her jaws closed around his right foot. The grip was absolute, unyielding teeth pressing through neoprene with the crushing certainty of steel bands. Gasps tore through the stands. Some spectators clapped at first, mistaking the violent lunge for part of the act. The illusion shattered as Kasatka yanked him from the platform. Ken's body snapped downwards, slamming into the water with bone-jarring force. A burst of spray blinded the first rows of the audience as his figure vanished beneath the surface. The applause gave way to a roar of confusion, voices rising in a frantic chorus of shouts. Above the pool, the world blurred into chaos. Trainers on the sidelines blew sharp blasts on their whistles, the shrill sound piercing through the stadium's echo. Safety poles extended out over the water arms, straining to track the pair as bubbles churned below. He's under, one voice shouted, frantic and desperate. In the stands, parents clutched their children close, shielding young eyes. Phones rose into the air, recording shaky footage. A little girl whispered, "Why isn't he coming back up?" Her mother pulled her close, unable to answer. The pool boiled with movement, Kasatka's massive frame twisting below. For Ken, the world was a rush of cold and pressure, the water hammering his ears, his body dragged in the unrelenting grip. The surface above dimmed to a wavering halo of light. He resisted the instinct to thrash, aligning his body with hers, letting the force carry him deeper. From the stands, the once joyful music now clashed grotesquely with the scene unfolding below. The opening act had transformed in seconds from spectacle to nightmare. Shamu Stadium was no longer a stage for magic, but an arena where the line between performance and survival had been torn away. The first descent came like a plunge into darkness. Kasatka dragged Ken down in a burst of bubbles, her powerful tail strokes propelling both of them into the deep blue. His chest tightened, every second stretching as the lights above blurred into faint streaks. Trainers leaned over the platform, whistles, shrieking arms, waving in desperate signals. But the whale's course didn't change. She held him fast, her jaws locked with the steady certainty of a vice. Then, with deliberate control, she pivoted upward. The water roared past his ears as they surged toward the surface. His lungs burned vision, narrowing. A moment later, they broke through in an explosion of spray. Ken gasped sharply, the breath tearing into him like fire. Relief lasted only a second. With a violent twist, Kasatka rolled and dove again, hauling him back under. The cycle repeated. Rise, breathe, dive. Each ascent was brief, a single ragged gulp of air before the crushing silence of the depths claimed him again. Above, the audience had fallen into a stunned, uneven chorus of cries. Some screamed at the sight, others filmed with trembling hands. Trainers threw flotation buoys into the water, their bright colors bobbing uselessly on the surface. Safety nets unfurled, stretching across sections of the pool, but Kasatka moved with a precision that ignored them all. Ken's body aligned with hers, conserving strength. Years of experience told him that panic would only tighten her grip. Still, every descent pushed him closer to the edge of endurance. His ears ached from pressure, his right leg throbbed beneath the crushing clamp of her jaws, and the cold gnawed into his core. From the stands, the scene looked surreal, an apex predator dictating a rhythm of survival, and a man suspended in her control. "Help him," someone screamed. Another voice trembling whispered, "She's drowning him." Minutes bled together. Kasatka's cadence never faltered. Each dive was deeper, each rise shorter. Trainers along the edge blew whistles in frantic succession, the shrill blast ricocheting off concrete, yet she gave no response. On one ascent, she loosened her grip just enough for Ken's body to drift upward, teasing the possibility of release. Gasps rose from the crowd. Then with a snap, her jaws closed again, dragging him back into the depths. By now, the pool's shimmering surface felt like a cruel mirage, visible, tantalizing, but never guaranteed. 9 minutes stretched into eternity, a test of breath, patience, and endurance. In Shamu Stadium, time seemed to stop, the fate of one man, balanced entirely in the grip of the giant beneath him. Then, without warning, the pressure on Ken's foot eased. It wasn't a snap release, but a slow loosening, as if Kasatka were making the decision in measured silence. His body drifted upward, carried by the natural buoyancy of his wetsuit and the churned water around him. Trainers leaned in, poles extended, their shouts rising in urgency. "Now, Ken, take it, take it!" The surface shattered around him in a burst of light and sound. Air tore into his lungs, ragged and desperate. Hands reached down from the platform, gripping his arms and shoulders. Trainers hauled with all their strength, neoprene slipping under wet palms until at last his body slid onto the concrete stage. He lay flat chest, heaving, the harsh glare of the stadium lights burning against his eyes. Kasatka lingered just feet away. Her dorsal fin cut slow arcs across the pool's surface, each movement deliberate as though nothing extraordinary had taken place. The audience, frozen moments before, erupted into fractured reactions. Gasps scattered applause, whispers laced with disbelief. Cameras clicked and phones recorded their small red lights, unblinking witnesses to the ordeal. Ken sat up slowly, right foot throbbing, water streaming from his wetsuit in dark rivulets. His colleagues crouched beside him, one pressing a towel against his leg, another murmuring steady words. He looked back across the pool. Kasatka hovered near the center, her dark eye just above the surface, watching. There was no frenzy in her movements, no chaos, only a quiet assertion, a reminder of who commanded the water. The crowd's excitement had drained into uneasy silence. Parents clutched their children tighter, whispering explanations they themselves didn't fully believe. Some visitors left quickly, faces pale, while others lingered, unable to look away from the surreal stillness settling over the arena. The music, still trickling from hidden speakers, seemed hollow now, background noise to a scene that would replay in memories for years. For Ken, the performance had ended not with applause, but with survival. The line between partnership and peril had been exposed for everyone to see. Shamu Stadium no longer felt like a theater of wonder. It felt like a reminder that trust in a predator's world could vanish in the span of a breath. The incident at Shamu Stadium did not exist in isolation. Around the world, stories of trainers and orcas colliding in sudden violent moments had become part of a disturbing pattern, each case different, yet echoing the same theme: powerful predators confined and controlled, breaking through the fragile boundaries of performance. One of the earliest warnings came in 1971 when Annette Ekis, a public relations secretary, was asked to ride a whale named Shamu as part of a publicity stunt. The cameras were rolling, the crowd expectant. At first, it looked playful Annette balancing on the orca's back in a bikini, the perfect image for brochures. But in a split second, Shamu tossed her into the water and clamped down on her leg. Screams filled the air as divers rushed in with poles, prying the massive jaws open. Annette survived, but left the pool bloody, stitched together with 25 sutures and a lifelong reminder that these were not show animals, they were predators. Decades later, tragedy struck in Spain. Alexis Martinez, a skilled young trainer, entered a pool with Kio, a star attraction, at Loro Parque. It was Christmas Eve 2009. Families expected holiday spectacle, but something in Kio had shifted. Trainers noticed him blocking Alexis's path, positioning himself between man and escape. Then in a sudden drive of power, Kio forced him down, holding him beneath the surface. By the time staff pulled Alexis's body out, it was too late. He had suffered catastrophic internal injuries. His death made international headlines, a grim reminder of the risk written into every performance. At SeaWorld Orlando, another young orca named Takoa turned on trainer Claudia Volhart during a rehearsal in 2007. One moment she was being pushed across the pool in a standard maneuver. The next she was being hauled under in repeated suffocating plunges. Colleagues fought desperately to save her. Claudia survived with broken bones and a damaged lung, but the image of her limp body being lifted from the pool seared itself into memory. Then came the most infamous case of all, Lauren Carter at SeaWorld Orlando in 2010. She was the face of the park, beloved by colleagues and audiences alike. Yet when Magnus, the park's largest male orca, dragged her beneath the surface, the attack stretched nearly an hour, ending only with her death. The spectacle, once marketed as the pinnacle of harmony, now looked like the stage for recurring tragedy. Each story added to the weight pressing on Ken's ordeal with Kasatka. His survival stood in sharp contrast to those who never left the pool alive. And together they told a larger truth: captivity carried risks that no choreography could erase. In the hours after the attack, Shamu Stadium stood unusually quiet. Staff hurried to reassure shaken visitors, ushering families out through the main gates. But the story was already spilling beyond the walls. By the next morning, headlines blared across newspapers and television screens: Orca drags trainer underwater in front of crowd. Footage shot from cell phones ricocheted through news broadcasts and online platforms, each clip capturing the same harrowing truth: Ken Peters pulled under again and again by Kasatka, while the crowd screamed in disbelief. Investigators arrived swiftly, combing through reports, interviewing staff, and reviewing the video. They wanted to know what triggered the attack. Some pointed to Kasatka's calf vocalizing from a nearby pool during the performance. Orca mothers, even in captivity, are highly protective. Trainers speculated that the calls may have agitated her, pushing her to assert control in the only way she could. Others argued it was years of confinement, the accumulated strain of being housed in a concrete tank instead of the open ocean where her kind traveled dozens of miles every day. Experts debated the meaning. Marine biologists went on record reminding the public that these whales, though intelligent and trainable, were never domesticated. They are not pets, one researcher said on live television. They are predators weighing several tons. When you confine that much power in a small environment and expect flawless performances, eventually something gives. SeaWorld officials moved quickly to contain the fallout. Spokespeople emphasized Ken's survival, highlighting his skill, training, and composure under extraordinary circumstances. Behind closed doors, however, tension rippled through staff. Trainers knew this wasn't the first time Kasatka had shown aggression. Ken himself had been targeted by her once before in 1999. The repetition raised a chilling question: if a seasoned veteran like him was at risk. What protection did anyone truly have? Public reactions split down the middle. Some defended the shows, insisting the animals were loved, cared for, and that accidents were part of any dangerous profession. Others saw the incident as proof that captivity itself was flawed, sparking petitions and calls for reform. Talk shows debated ethics, parents questioned whether to bring their children to marine parks, and activists pushed for boycotts. For Ken, the noise of the debate was distant. What lingered was not the headlines, but the memory of teeth around his ankle, the cold weight of the water, and the knowledge that survival had hinged entirely on a choice made by the predator in the pool. Kasatka lived on for more than a decade after that November night, but her story and Ken's survival remained at the center of debate. Trainers continued working with her, though never again with the same ease. Every routine carried the shadow of that performance, every dive reminding colleagues of how swiftly a show could shift from spectacle to life and death struggle. In 2017, her long captivity came to an end when she was euthanized after battling an untreatable respiratory illness. She was around 40 years old, an unusually long life for a captive orca, yet one marked by isolation, conflict, and controversy. Her death reopened questions that had never really faded. Could creatures built for vast oceans, intricate social bonds, and the hunt for live prey ever truly adapt to confined tanks? Critics pointed to her final years as evidence of suffering. The listless floating, the pacing, the repetitive calls that echoed through the concrete walls. Supporters countered with arguments of conservation research and the joy her presence brought to millions of visitors. But beneath all the arguments lay an undeniable truth: no tank could ever mirror the open sea. Ken returned to work, though those who knew him said the incident left an imprint that never disappeared. He remained professional, calm, committed to his role, but a sharper awareness lingered. He had looked directly into the power of a predator and understood more than anyone in the stands that night the fragile boundaries of their partnership. In the years that followed, SeaWorld faced mounting scrutiny. Dawn Brancheau's death in 2010 pushed the debate further, drawing documentaries, legislative hearings, and international campaigns against captive performances. By 2016, SeaWorld announced it would end its orca breeding program and phase out theatrical shows, shifting toward educational presentations. To many, it was a change born of necessity rather than choice, but it marked a turning point. The legacy of Kasatka's hold on Ken Peters endures not just as a story of survival, but as a reminder of limits of where human ambition collides with the raw force of nature. Audiences had come seeking wonder, and they left with something far more sobering: the recognition that harmony between man and whale exists only within boundaries that can vanish without warning. In the silence after the show, the lesson remained clear. These were not performers, they were predators, and the ocean, not the stadium, would always be their true stage.